I knew the moment Wilson dragged that man into the station, bloodied, silent, and shoved into a cell like trash, that Oakage wasn't just a bad department, it was a cancer. He called him another worthless vagrant and walked away smirking. But the second the door clanged shut, the man whispered into his sleeve, "Director, I've identified all officers in the racial profiling op. They just gave me access to everything." Yeah, that man was me. And if you think that's where the story gets wild, you have no idea. It started months earlier, in a cold conference room at the FBI. 17 black residents dead in custody. Hundreds of bogus arrests. Patterns that screamed, targeted. But the locals called coincidence. We needed someone on the inside, and I didn't need to be asked twice. Undercover work wasn't new to me, but this wasn't just a job. This was personal. I became Elijah Washington, a homeless vet with PTSD. Lost weight, grew a beard, learned the shuffle, the mutter, the 1,000-yard stare. And then I walked into Oakage. The first thing I learned? This place was 2 towns in one. West Side, white, clean, cops smiled at you. East Side, black, poor, cops hunted you. I saw Wilson and his buddy Cooper shaking down teenagers, planting fear in every interaction. Outside a black-owned store, Cooper hinted the owner should pay protection or face health code trouble. I logged it all, murmured into my scarf at night. My mic sending files to a receiver miles away. But living on the street wasn't just cold. It was invisibility mixed with contempt. People wouldn't meet your eyes, or they gripped their purse tighter. Then I met Shanice Taylor. She ran a shelter on MLK Boulevard and, unlike everyone else, looked me straight in the face. That small moment, it stuck. Later I learned she was documenting police abuse herself. She became more important than either of us realized. I stayed invisible until the day a woman recognized me from a past case. I had to fake a mental breakdown right there, rambling about aliens until she backed off. Problem was, it got me arrested, and that was my break. In the holding cell, officers talked freely about their Eastern District specials. No phone calls, slow processing, quiet beatings. That arrest gave me more intel in 24 hours than 2 weeks on the street. From there, I followed patterns, evidence disappearing, drugs showing up in the pockets of people who swore they'd never touched them. Franklin, the evidence room guy, was in deep. Chief Hansen. He was the spider in the middle of the web, connections to the state capitol, friends in the courts. Miller, the smiling officer in patrol photos. She wrote false reports that matched whatever story they needed. It wasn't just racism, it was organized crime. One night, I tailed Cooper and found him in an abandoned warehouse with white supremacists. They weren't investigating, they were working together. Outside, I spotted Wilson roughing up a kid named Deshaun Robinson, fresh from basketball practice. I couldn't blow my cover, so I caused a distraction, trash cans, yelling, just enough for the kid to get away. The next day, I watched his parents file a complaint and saw the desk sergeant shred it before they even left the building. By then, my network of street contacts was growing. Lamar Johnson told me how his son was killed over a broken taillight. 8 shots, no body cam, because it malfunctioned. Lamar lost his job, his home, everything. Shanice's meetings were like underground tribunals, collecting stories the department couldn't destroy. I was in deep, and then a twist I didn't see coming. A young lawyer named Andre Williams. Harvard-educated, hometown boy, asking the right questions. The department wanted dirt on him. I left him cryptic warnings in the middle of my rants. But the danger kept building. Cooper started watching me too closely. I staged another arrest to get inside again, overhearing plans for a raid on Good Shepherd Church, Shanice's meeting spot, on bogus drug charges. I had to warn them without blowing my cover, so I muttered nonsense about wolves and badges to her people, hoping they'd get it. Then I caught Wilson stealing drugs from evidence to sell back to dealers. When Cooper and Wilson cornered me in an alley, they made it clear. Next time, you disappear permanently. My handler offered extraction. I stayed. I was too close. What came next still feels like a movie I barely survived. Cooper tried to set me up for suicide in custody. I turned the tables. Faked a seizure, knocked out 2 officers, and got into the records room, photographed racial coding logs, planted evidence files, insurance folders. 3 days later, I was face-to-face with my FBI handler, handing over the biggest case of corruption she'd ever seen. She wanted me out. I went back in. The final phase was ugly. The mayor and Hansen were using the department to clear out the black community for luxury condos. I recorded them saying it. Operation Community Safety turned East Oakage into a militarized zone. Checkpoints, warrantless searches, curfews. I found proof that suicides in custody were murders. The feds were almost ready, but they needed 48 more hours. Then Deshaun, the kid I'd saved, was tackled so hard his skull hit concrete. He was 12. The community erupted. Protests, riot gear, tear gas. I saw Cooper set up snipers to grab leaders when the crowd thinned, and heard Wilson say if Shanice resists even a little, she doesn't make it to booking. That's when I made my choice. I dropped the act, sprinted to her, tackled her as Wilson reached for his gun. FBI, I shouted, flashing my badge. That was the signal. Black SUVs, helicopters, agents pouring in. Hansen arrested at his desk. Cooper caught fleeing. Wilson, my personal favorite arrest, handcuffed by me. Miller, the only one with a conscience, flipped on Franklin and led us to the real evidence stash. In the end, 23 people indicted, 15 officers, the chief, the mayor, the judge, the medical examiner, and civilians in the network. Wilson and Cooper got 30 years for civil rights violations resulting in death. Hundreds of wrongful convictions were overturned. Oakage's police came under federal oversight. And me? I stayed. Helped rebuild. Andre led legal reforms. Shanice and I, well, we got past the lies, eventually. 3 years later, we opened the Community Justice Center. Deshaun was there, heading to college. Shanice stood beside me, and I told the crowd the truth. Oakage isn't special because it was corrupt. It's special because the people refused to break. Now I'll ask you, what's the real lesson here? That a community's resilience can outlast even the worst corruption? That holding power accountable matters more than comfort? Or that one person's decision, in the moment it counts, can change everything? Because here's the thing, justice doesn't happen by accident. It's built, brick by brick, by people who choose to stand when it would be easier to walk away. So, what would you do? AR's storefront glass swept into neat piles, the smell of tear gas still lingering in the air, yellow tape flapping in the cold wind. People weren't celebrating. They were watching, waiting to see if this was real change or just another headline that would fade in a week. I didn't get to rest. My phone, well, my encrypted bureau line, lit up before sunrise. Franklin's still out there, my handler said. We believe he has physical evidence we missed. Evidence we missed. That's the kind of sentence that makes you sit up fast no matter how tired you are. By mid-morning, we'd tracked him to a rundown farmhouse on the county line. No backup yet. Just me in an unmarked car, watching the front porch through binoculars. He wasn't alone. 2 off-duty officers loyal to him. Drinking coffee like this was just another day. I couldn't wait for the tactical team. If Franklin burned whatever he had, months of work would vanish in smoke. So I walked up that dirt driveway like I belonged there, wearing an old work jacket and carrying a clipboard I'd swiped from the station. County Inspector, I said, flashing a fake badge quick enough that no one could read it. The thing about guys like Franklin's friends? They don't expect trouble to walk right up to them. Inside, the smell hit me first, bleach. I followed it to the kitchen sink, where Franklin was soaking manila folders, the ink bleeding into cloudy water. You're late, he said without turning. I didn't answer. I slammed him into the counter before he realized I wasn't there to help. The folders were ruined, but the real prize was in the freezer, Ziploc bags full of thumb drives, wrapped in foil like leftovers. By the time the team rolled up, Franklin was cuffed and glaring at me like I'd just burned down his house. And maybe I had, in a way. That evidence cracked the rest of the network wide open. Officers in neighboring counties, even a state senator, tied to the same drug money pipeline. Turns out Oakage wasn't a rotten tree. It was part of an entire orchard. And in the middle of all that chaos, I kept running into Shanice. Not at protests now, but at planning tables. We'd meet in church basements and city offices, working side by side to keep the reforms from getting watered down. She didn't make it easy on me. Trust takes time, and I'd lied for months. But she never shut me out. One night, long after the cameras were gone, we sat on the steps of the new community center. She told me about a kid from the shelter who'd been too scared to walk home before, and now carried himself like he belonged anywhere. That's what this was for, she said quietly. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it might stick. But Oakage still had shadows. The Brennan family, the drug empire protected by the old department, wasn't gone. They'd just gone quiet. Andre warned me over coffee one morning. They'll come back when they think everyone's moved on. He was right. The question was, would Oakage be ready next time? So that's where I leave it with you. We got justice, yeah, but only for now. Because corruption isn't a villain you arrest once. It's a tide. And if you stop watching the shoreline, it'll come right back in. What do you think? Was it worth everything we risked, knowing the fight's never really over?